Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Yukono. Amanda Hill has this Friday off. We will get to all those stories in just a moment right here. First, we're headed into a weekend that's really looking pretty good for mid-January. Keith Carson has our first check of the forecast. Hey, Keith.
Yeah, Brian, you do have to temper your general expectations this time of the year, mostly, and it doesn't look bad from that standpoint. And today was probably the best day of the week, right? Temperatures in the upper 20s, some of us briefly into the low 30s in Wiscasset and Sanford and Portsmouth, New Hampshire, for example. Well, clear skies felt really nice during the day. We got a lot of sunshine in there. However, as we've talked about throughout the week, that's going to be a bit of a detriment going into the overnight hours as we don't have any clouds to help keep or trap some of that warmth from the daytime in. So temperatures will cool down quickly. It's hard to communicate cold weather sometimes in a historically cold time of the year, right? So these temperatures are very cold. Will be 0 to 5 degrees along the coastline, up to 5 degrees below away from the coastline, and then 10 below into the mountains. It's not the core of the cold weather that we had earlier in the week, but it is still going to be well below average, as our average low is 15 this time of the year. We will not be near that. And so this cold morning that we start with tomorrow sets us back throughout the day. It's a nice bright day tomorrow, but temperatures struggle. We're in the low 20s, mid 20s, and keep in mind that's your high temperature in the afternoon. So most of the day on either side of that spent in the teens. In the mountains, we'll get to the teens at best, the high terrain in the single digits. Second half of the weekend looks warmer. We'll talk about that and perhaps a little bit of snow coming next week, Brian.
All right, Keith, we'll see you in a minute. During his first week in office, President Donald Trump has reversed a policy on how agents with U.S. immigration and custom enforcement do their jobs. The previous rule prohibited agents from making arrests in designated sensitive areas. This rollback has sparked some concern across the country, including here in Maine. News Center Maine's Alex Haskell takes a look at how some local organizations are reacting to the change.
Under the new guidelines, immigration officers are now permitted to arrest migrants in what the agency calls sensitive locations. That includes places of worship and schools. Because of that change, teachers and religious leaders are stepping up to protect their students and parishioners. In a statement on Tuesday, the Department of Homeland Security said the presidential action will now empower Border Patrol and immigration agents to go after murderers and rapists, adding criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest.
Removing the protected area designation for schools is not the right move.
Tim Matheny is the superintendent of schools in South Portland. As President Trump cracks down on undocumented immigrants and their children, Matheny says he's seeing a wave of concerned families wondering if it's safe to send their children to school. To address these concerns, the district is equipping its social workers with ways to provide support.
We are lining up some sessions with immigration attorneys so that they know at least some general advice that we can provide our families who are experiencing a lot of anxieties right now.
Matheny is also preparing for the real possibility of immigration agents arriving at schools in the district.
I will interact with that agent as I consult with our school district's attorney. It's very important for us to follow the law, but at the same time to honor the privacy rights of our families.
Anna Welch, a professor at the University of Maine School of Law, points out that immigration agents can only enter schools with a judicial warrant, a court order issued by a judge or magistrate, which is not easy to obtain. Welch reassures families, stating, parents and children should feel safe going to school.
It goes against everything we believe in as Unitarian Universalists.
Over at First Parish in Portland, Reverend Norman Allen is working to find ways to comfort those in the immigrant community.
They've crossed borders to get here and have shown strength and courage, and we're going to do everything we can to support them.
In the days following the Trump administration's policy change, rumors have been circulating online regarding immigration agents showing up at Maine colleges and other locations. Our team has investigated some of these claims. So far, they've all been false. In Portland, Alex Haskell, News Center, Maine.
And we should note that the Brunswick School District has been very vocal about this topic. In a statement to the community, the superintendent assured the public that federal law allows a child living in the U.S., including those who are undocumented, to attend public school. In the opening hours of his second term, President Trump issued an executive order to deny citizenship to American-born children of undocumented immigrants. That move drew an almost immediate legal challenge as 22 states, including Maine now, filed lawsuits against that action, saying it goes directly against the 14th Amendment. Yesterday, a federal judge in Seattle blocked Trump's order, temporarily halting it. And while some Republicans have praised the president's move, Maine Senator Susan Collins questions its legality.
The fact is, the Constitution says that if you're born in America, you are an American citizen. It's always difficult to predict exactly what the courts will do, but the Constitution seems pretty clear to me.
President Trump did tell reporters he plans to appeal that judge's decision to block his executive order. The trial of a man from Buckfield accused of shaking his infant daughter so hard he caused her death entered its fourth day today. Trevor Averill is charged with depraved indifference murder and manslaughter in the death of 2-month-old Harper. Today, the prosecution called an expert in neuroradiology to the stand. Dr. Mary Edwards Brown, who has a practice in Indiana, often consults on various cases, and she told the court she reviewed the baby's CT and MRI scans and gave a demonstration of the type of force and motion it would take to inflict the injuries Harper sustained to her brain and spine. The prosecution still has not rested its case. That trial will continue next week. 14-year-old boy Lewiston recovering tonight from a gunshot wound, and police are looking for the person who shot him. However, they say that boy is not cooperating with their investigation. Police say they were called to a home on Pierce Street around 10 o'clock just last night. When officers got there, they found that teen shot in the leg. He was then taken to the hospital. Now, this latest shooting is one of dozens that have happened in Lewiston just over the past year, and most of them concentrated in the Tree Street section of the city, where apartment buildings and cars have been hit. One teenager killed in a shooting not far away from the Tree Street area. There have been no arrests in that case. Last summer, police in Lewiston expressed frustration about the lack of cooperation from witnesses in many of the shootings, which they say has delayed investigations into finding the people responsible. Still ahead right here tonight, how a good meal and good company is making this winter a little shorter for people in one Maine town. We'll take a look. But first, how sled dog racers from Maine are headed to Alaska to mark the 100th anniversary of a legendary race to save lives. That story when we come back. Normally, at this time of year, a lot of Mainers would be thinking maybe going somewhere warmer, at least for a few days. Well, the man you're about to meet is not one of those people. He is a musher, and he and his team are about to set out on a trek, marking the 100th anniversary of one of Alaska's most famous races for survival. Here's News Center Maine's Drew Peters.
3 Mainers, 1 Canadian, and 16 dogs. Trekking to Alaska to replicate a 100-year-old expedition that saved the lives of many in the town of Nome suffering from diphtheria.
The only way to get the antitoxin in was by dog sled team. And so there was a relay of 20 teams that relayed the serum from Nenana, Alaska to Nome, Alaska.
One of the original expedition teams was headed by lead dog Togo, whose bravery and strength is now honored with a statue in Poland Spring where he retired.
Leonard Seppala took Togo and his team and settled in Maine to create the very first Seppala Siberian sled dog kennel. And so all of our dogs are descended from that.
With help from his crew and his Seppala Siberian sled dogs, Jonathan Hayes is setting out to honor Togo and the expedition teams in his own way.
This heritage, this legacy, and this symbiotic relationship between humans and dogs are worth preserving.
Accompanying him is fellow Mainer Jamie Nichols, who will be riding alongside in a snow machine filled with supplies.
The trail now is very remote. It's less traveled than it was 100 years ago. So with the adaptation of the snow machine, we'll be able to haul the freight sleds we've fabricated.
Filmmaker Caleb Gingras will be documenting the entire expedition and has already been capturing the team's journey to Alaska.
Nice. I'm learning so much about these dogs, and they're starting to get to know me too, and the whole team.
While they all have different jobs, Hayes says they all share one common goal.
Make sure that this next generation hears these stories and why they were important.
And even though the journey will be long and hard, Hayes knows he and his dogs are up for the task.
People ask me, are your dogs cold? And I answer, is a polar bear cold? Is an Arctic wolf cold? I mean, this is their home.
Drew Peters, News Center, Maine.
Very neat. Hayes and his crew will begin that expedition at 10 a.m. Alaska time on Monday. That's 2 p.m. here in Maine. When we come back here at 6, Keith has his full forecast for your weekend and beyond. And then how the winters in one Maine town just seem a little bit shorter and less lonely thanks to a restaurant and some volunteers. Don Kerrigan serves up that story as News Center Maine at 6 continues. In the middle of winter, it can be a lonely time for some people, but for many, and we mean many in the Boothbay area, winter has become a time they have come to love. It's all because of a group of volunteers and businesses that are doing good together, one plateful at a time. Here's News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan.
In Boothbay Harbor, winter has taken hold. It is the cold and quiet season in these tourist towns. Except on Mondays at Brady's Restaurant.
Well, we're all nuts.
Jen Plummer owns and runs the place. Her mom, Tansy, helps out.
I mean, we live in Boothbay Harbor year-round. Come on, there's got to be something special about us.
There aren't many people that come here in the wintertime because there are other places to be.
But in these towns, Mondays in winter are different because Monday brings community lunch, and lunch is free.
It's a great thing. We see people in here that we don't see at any time during the year, but we have a lot of people that comes here that love it.
That's Jean Rennie. We'll hear more from her in a minute. Community lunch began around 10 years ago at one of the local churches. COVID knocked it out, and the churches couldn't bring it back. So Jen and Tansy did.
Jenny came up with the idea to have it at Brady's.
Because her mom loved it.
And that was when we were doing 35 lunches, a week.
Nowadays, they're serving as many as 100. Some of the diners come early to make sure they get their favorite seat.
This is where we sit.
Others just find seats where they can. Some are on their lunch break, others are retired. Some poor, some rich, some in between, just like these towns.
There's people, and they'll tell you, and I can see 6 of them right from here. This is the highlight of their week. And they wait for summer to get done so that they can come back to community lunch.
And finally, time to eat.
We have a lunch served to you by Shore Hills Campground and Rennie Construction.
That's right. The food each week is donated, cooked, and served by local groups and businesses.
Well, coleslaw would be great.
This week, it's Jean Rennie's family business, Rennie Construction, and the family's campground. Much of it prepped the night before at her granddaughter's house.
We got to load up the local boys. I love it. I love seeing the people. Friends, new people. Every week there's someone new that joins in. Does so much for the community.
That looks pretty good.
Oh, low calorie.
And making sure everybody gets what they need is a team of volunteers. Many of them have been here from the start.
Because I love serving others. And I like being part of a community where we're all here to help others, where we're here to help them smile.
And in the corner by the window, we met Howard and Dee Wright.
The camaraderie and the food.
They're regulars. He is 95.
Nice home-cooked food and wonderful friendships. And it gets us rather senior citizens, I'm speaking for some here, out of the house.
And you get to know their names. You may not remember them, but...
For most of them, it's just an hour once a week. But community lunch has become part of their lives.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
What makes this such a good thing?
I don't know, people have a good time, they want to come back.
In the dark months of the year, there is still light and warmth every Monday.
Would you like one or two?
Let winter do what it does. Here, there is fellowship and food, filling hearts as well as appetites. There is community and lunch.
Don Kerrigan with your smile from Boothbay Harbor today. Community lunch, by the way, is held just about every week from November 1st until Palm Sunday in April. So that's essentially half the year. However, when spring and summer roll around, a lot of the people there are just too busy to take that hour off for lunch. We'll be right back.